In my very first article that I ever wrote, called Doom is Always 6 Months Away, I talked about how at some point you will not be able to buy silver or gold for any amount of money. The rationale behind that is that the manipulation of this market is so long and so dramatic that at some point it will completely break and end with a bang. Since the gold and silver story is ultimately about the dollar that controls every transaction and everything in the world, and that it's completely unsustainable and funded by an unlimited amount of generational Ponzi scheme debt, that at some point it'll end, and it'll end dramatically. Until then, we're lulled into a sense that this can go on forever. Well, it can't. There's a physical reality that comes in, and that no matter how hard they try to manipulate the markets are ultimately more powerful than even the most powerful bankers. The world is waking up to the debt and death Ponzi scheme that the Anglo-American bankers have been using for over 300 years. Obama's latest debacle for warmongering in Syria, and now Iran, is being met by a unified front of nations that see through this scam. These nations see that the United States has an unlimited advantage of creating unlimited amount of debt to fund the military-industrial complex, to secure the world's natural resources and labor, to have their corporations harvest those resources, and then funnel those huge profits through Wall Street and the City of London. This allows more consolidation of power back to those that create debt and death. The world is changing and waking up, and at some point the game's going to change forever. Now, I don't know when the day that this is going to happen, but I know that it is going to be the single largest event in human history, and it's far better to be years in advance ready for this single day than it would be to be one day too late. It makes no logical sense to me to chase any other market or any other opportunity out there, given the fact that there's so much counterparty risk and you're not even being rewarded for taking that risk. For me, I would rather be in silver that has returned over 20% a year since the beginning of the silver bull market. It has no counterparty risk, and on any measure of value that I have seen, whether in inflation-adjusted numbers or even against labor, housing, or the stock market, silver is dramatically undervalued to all those assets. I mentioned before that the world is waking up, and that there's a physical reality that will ultimately decide what happens in this world. One particular moment that I would like people to focus on is a period in the gold market called Brown's Bottom. You may remember a guy named Gordon Brown, this kind of swarthy, weird-looking guy, who later became Prime Minister of the UK. Well, between 1999 and 2002, when gold prices were at their lowest price in 20 years, and in an extended bear market, he decided to sell half of the United Kingdom's gold reserves in a series of auctions, and sold over 400 tons of gold between 1999 and 2002, at an average price of $275 an ounce. This was seen as one of the worst financial decisions of any government to sell so much at so little price. But when you understand that these governments actually benefit from a suppressed gold price because they have trillions upon trillions of dollars of paper assets that they have built up upon their fiat currencies, sometimes it's a small price to pay. But the story is not who sells the gold. To me, it's who buys the gold. Now, I had always assumed that there was a big powerful banker like a Rothschild or Rockefeller that was looting the government's gold and exchanging their worthless fiat dollars for physical gold. But I recently found out that the Bundesbank in Germany withdrew nearly 1,000 tons of physical gold from the Bank of England from 2000 to 2001, decreasing Germany's gold holdings in London from 1,400 tons to 500 tons. So logic would dictate that if Germany was asking for their gold back in England, and England didn't have as much gold as they said that they did, that they would have to go into their own pocket to make sure that the system held. Earlier this year, Germany asked to have 674 tons of gold back from the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve not only would not let them audit the gold, they told Germany that they would have to wait 7 years to get their gold back. So what do you think the Germans, the Chinese, the Russians, the rest of the world is doing, understanding that the United States has this unlimited power of funding wars and debt through having the world's reserve currency? They're going for the gold. And I think it's going to end in a very dramatic fashion that you will not have a chance to trade or get ready for when it becomes apparent that the game is over. Two charts that I found recently that I just find amazing is the COMEX deliverable gold from the time period that Germany asked for its gold back and was told that they had to wait 7 years, has declined from 3 million ounces of gold to just over 500,000 ounces of gold. That's almost an 80% decline in the last few months. This is astounding. I mean, what is the COMEX to do if they have no gold? What is worse, the amount of claims to the physical gold ounces that are there are at an all-time high. During the time of Brown's Bottom, where there was obviously stress inside the system to deliver physical gold that the UK ended up getting rid of almost half of the gold that they have, there was nearly 40 times the amount of paper contracts to the physical ounces that were there during that time period of stress. Now, Brown's bottom marked the end of the gold bear market and has been up almost 500 to 600% since then. But now I'm seeing a huge stress in the market once again. And when you look at the open interest contracts on the COMEX for gold and the depleting registered stocks of physical ounces, we're at an all-time high that exceeds even what Brown's bottom put out. And we're at 57.8 paper contracts per ounce. It is my belief that once all the gold and silver are drained out of the markets, the game will be up. For if there's a default in any of these markets, and the world realizes how manipulated these markets ultimately have been, and that there's so many paper contracts that ultimately control no physical ounce of gold and silver, who in their right mind would sell their physical until a dramatically higher price is fixed on that gold or silver? Think about the quadrillions of dollars in paper assets that are out there, in derivatives, stocks, bonds, pensions, insurance, even the cash sitting in your bank. We're all just counterparty risk assets that are built upon generational debt. When the scam ends, it's going to end with a bang. And those that are holding physical gold and silver will find themselves as a beneficiary of the largest transfer of wealth. Now, as you all know, I've been all in on silver since 2005, and I don't own any gold. And the reason for that is the gold to silver ratio, which is currently around 60 ounces of silver for each ounce of gold. Knowing that it comes out of the ground at 9 ounces of silver for every ounce of gold, I believe that no matter what price gold ultimately goes to in any currency, silver on a relative basis will outpace any rise in gold that they may see. So despite whatever the sentiment or technical figures are out there, I want to keep people focused not so much on when the bang comes, but just knowing that it will come. Until that day, keep stacking real assets, real friends, and real skills.